Jeff Grubb, Games Beat. PlayStation 4 Pro, if I can lift it up. Oh my god, it's heavy. I guess it's time to review this thing. It's $400, out November 10th. From Sony, it's basically an upgraded PlayStation 4. Meant to do 4K video, 4K gaming, and HDR, a bunch of other stuff. Makes VR games better, apparently. Not apparently, I've tested it. But you know what I mean. We're about to get into this review for real. I'm just trying to remember what else I should go over. I guess I could say Sony sent this out to me not too long ago. There's a little sticker there so I can't take it apart. Not that I would do that because I would break it. But this is a tough machine to figure out. I always start my videos with my headsets on and then I take them off because I hate talking with them covering my ears and I don't have my mic monitor on. I'm not going to hold that thing up the whole time, so I guess I'll show it off to you one more time before we kind of get into it. But yeah, like I said, it's a tough thing to sort of wrap your mind around, at least at this point. So let's kind of go over what this even is. So I said it's, you know, kind of a 4K gaming machine. This is not a PlayStation 5. This is PlayStation 4 Pro. And I think that naming should help you kind of understand what Sony is going for here. It's Pro, not in that it's for professionals. It is Pro in that you should only upgrade and get this if you think you need to have the highest end everything. If you are happy with your PlayStation 4, I don't think Sony wants to pressure you into thinking you need to get the Pro instead. And I say that because it is definitely for a niche. Oh my god, I can't say that word. It's for a tiny audience at this point because it's for people who have 4K televisions that are capable of displaying high dynamic range visuals, which means basically a wider spectrum of colors than what you get on a normal television. So you get deeper blacks, brighter whites and lights on your screen, and then a bunch of different colors in between. It makes for a much more realistic image. But yeah, it's hard to figure out because who is this for? I think personally, I think Sony wants to make it for anyone who was there on day one and bought a PlayStation 4 for $400 when it had almost no games for it. I think they know that they have a dedicated audience of gamers who are very much, willing to be 100% Sony 100% of the time, and that audience will pay $400 again to have that top end thing, even if many of them, might not have 4K televisions. Now, I'm going to get into what I like and what I dislike soon. But I want to explain why it is so hard to kind of figure out. And I just think that Sony hasn't quite made the case for this system as it stands right now. And I think the reason is games are only slowly getting their pro patches so that they can support the features of this system. So Sony hasn't had a lot to show off and be like, oh, here's the reason you need this now. Without those games ready to go, Sony can only kind of tell you about it, and telling instead of showing is hard. At the same time, showing off 4K on a console and HDR even, very difficult because I can't capture 4K. I looked it up. The cards to capture 4K video off a gaming machine are like $1,000. Some are $2,000. Many of them don't even have HDMI compatibility. You have to get DisplayPort. And going from HDMI, which the PlayStation 4 has, to DisplayPort, I don't think that's possible. I was not able to find any converter capable of doing that. So getting 4K video off of here is something I won't have. I'll have 1080p 60, kind of spliced some Modern Warfare remastered. You should see that spliced into the video here and there. And what you're going to see there is kind of the system doing the best 1080 60 the best 1080p 60 frames per second that it can do, with like super sampling the resolution so that edges are crisper than they normally are, meaning there's fewer jagged lines. Jaggy, we haven't said that in a while. But yeah, I mean, I guess I should just kind of get into what I do like, and that's going to start with the 4K. It is impressive. It works. I think what Sony's doing here with this system is proving something important that I think we all need to come to grips with as we move into 4K, especially when it comes to video gaming. And that's, our eyes are starting to reach their limits of what we can discern, especially from 10 feet away. When you're on a couch and you're watching TV that's in a family room setup, typically that's going to be 10 feet away. And that is so far away that it becomes difficult to see the difference between 1080 lines of resolution and 2160 lines of resolution. It is like trying to see the difference between a grain of salt from 5 feet away. It's a little bit easier, but when you start getting 10 feet away, it's more difficult to see individual grains. So getting to 4K is kind of getting to a point where, okay, that's almost probably as high as we need to go. I'm sure we will go higher. I'm sure there's other reasons, but once you start getting that far away, the difference between 1080 and 4K is minimal, if still noticeable. So Sony coming out with a console that does 4K gaming is interesting because it's showing us that we can get to 4K sort of by taking shortcuts and cheating. Since it is so far away and our eyes have trouble discerning that resolution, most games on PlayStation 4 are not going to natively render in 4K. That means, like on my PC that I'm doing this video on, I can do some games in 1080 or in 4K at 60 frames per second. I can put Doom on, and I can get that. And that is basically just the GTX GeForce 1080 just ramming itself into, like, using all of its power to render a huge number of pixels 60 times per second over and over with very few tricks. PlayStation 4, this PlayStation 4 is $300 less than that card. Just the card. Nothing else in the computer. So, and my card struggles to do 4K 60 in most games. So what the hell is happening here? Well, like I said, it is taking shortcuts because it can. Because you're playing on a TV, because that's far away, and rendering 4K natively is a waste of horsepower at that point. I think in my opinion, and in Sony's opinion, it seems like that's the case. So what they're doing here is some magical tricks where they're using technologies, and these, I'm not going to get into the weeds with this, but basically what they're doing is they are rendering games on the PlayStation 4 somewhere between 1440p and 1800p. Some games will get up to 2160, which is 4K, but most are going to be kind of in that 1440 to 1800 range. And then what Sony does is it uses a bunch of algorithms, some smart upscaling, basically very smart upscaling, to then blow that image up to 4K and filling in the pixels that were previously not there, using like a smart algorithm that knows based on what's around it what it should put there to give you basically what would have been a native 4K image. It's not going to be precise, but it's so close that most of our eyes are never going to pick up the difference. That is... And then basically, once it does that, it uses a bunch of other technologies to smooth out everything so that it looks really crisp and clear. Now, I would say that works. It is very impressive, that final image, what you're really seeing there on the screen when you play something like Call of Duty or Skyrim. The final result is just kind of, it's like, wow, they did it. They got this working, and it really is as high resolution as they claim, even though it isn't. It's not 4K, but it looks so close that the difference doesn't matter. And I'm glad they're doing this, because I think that this is the way that not only console gaming is going to do 4K, I think PC gaming should go this route. True, you are sitting closer to a 4K monitor, where you will maybe see some of the difference. I just think that getting back some of that compute power for other resources, for a higher frame rate, for graphical flourishes and things like that, I think those things are more important at that point than having that native 4K. But we'll see. The point is, the PlayStation 4 Pro does 4K and it works. Is it that much better than 1080p? Yeah, it is. You know, again, I'm sitting so far away most of the time that it's not something that's like going from standard definition to high definition. I don't think that it's that level of a jump. That was a huge deal. This is very neat, is how I would describe that difference there. But still, they got it done, and that's great. So what else do I like? I like that the games just work, that this is not a PlayStation 5, that this is a PlayStation 4 Pro, and therefore it is a PlayStation 4, and my PlayStation 4 games just work. I turn this on, I get my library going, and boom, it just works. I can download all my games, put any disc in here, and it's going to work. Now, some of those games are going to get enhancements based on the capabilities of the PlayStation 4 Pro. That means higher resolution, better frame rate, more graphics. Yes, the quantity of graphics will increase. But you know, like those graphical flourishes I mentioned, they might be able to be turned up in their enhanced versions. Point is, I didn't have to buy anything a second time because I have a new console in the house. That's a huge deal, a huge improvement. You know, not improvement, but it is smart that Sony is doing this and making it very clear that you won't have to repurchase anything. I think it's very friendly. I think they had to do it, but I'm glad they did, and it's worth pointing out that it is a positive. Other things, virtual reality games run better on this system. From what I've noticed, I'll give an example like Drive Club VR. Drive Club, when you kind of started, when cars started pulling away from you, they would begin losing detail and look kind of ugly and mushy. There was pixelation for sure, but I think what was happening is like once they started getting far enough away, just things would just turn off. Like graphical options would just turn off on those cars, and you would lose all kinds of detailing along the machine. With this system, I think a lot of it's been minimized. I think the resolution's a little bit higher, and I'm just seeing more, and everything's feeling more realistic, and it makes a difference in photorealistic games. But just in general, most VR games that are getting PS4 Pro enhanced editions are seeing a major benefit from the PS4 Pro. I think finally it's a lot quieter than the launch PlayStation 4, which is what I've had. Of all my gaming systems, including my PC, my Xbox One, and my Xbox One S, the PlayStation 4 2013 was by far the loudest. I don't know if it was the fan or the disk drive. Maybe I should go in there and make sure the thing is cleaned out or something, because when it spins up, it sounds like it's about to blast off into outer space. This machine, however, is heavy. I'm sure it gets warm in there, but it is much quieter, and that makes sense because it's based on AMD's new 16 nanometer process, which is much more power efficient, creates a lot less heat. So I imagine the fan speeds in here don't need to be as high. Also, it is a little bit bigger than that standard PlayStation 4, so maybe they have more space to work with their thermodynamics. But I think that does it for what I like. Now I'm going to move on to what I don't like, and I want to kind of preface this by saying this is still a PlayStation 4, which means it's still a very good video game console. It still plays all the PlayStation 4 games. It's only $400, and in the grand scheme of things, that's what we were paying for PS4 not too long ago. So this is still a good console in general. I think for these negatives, I want to be very specific that they are for people who already own a PlayStation 4. If you don't own a PlayStation 4 and you are thinking about buying one, I think this is the one to get. It's going to be future-proofed. Sure, Sony hasn't made the best case for it yet, but I think they're going to. I'm pretty confident that they're going to have plenty of games that support this. I mean, going forward, everything will. And, you know, in 2 years, chances are you're going to have a 4K HDR 10 television to take full advantage of this. So this is much more future-proofed than the other one, even if the other one is still very good. So yeah, with that said, I would point out that yes, you need the exact right television for the PlayStation 4 to fully, you know, bloom into all that it is capable of. If you go out and buy a TV right now for like $500, a 4K Ultra HD TV, it's probably not going to have the full capabilities that it's probably not going to take full advantage of what the PlayStation 4 can do. Sorry, let me adjust something real quick. So as I was saying, you need basically you need the right television. And if you go out and spend $500, you're not probably going to get a TV that takes the full advantage of the PlayStation 4 Pro capabilities. What I mean by that is, yeah, you'll probably get 4K, but 4K is only a half of the story when it comes to the PlayStation 4 in terms of its big jumps forward. The bigger thing, in my opinion, and I think this is probably the right opinion, is HDR. HDR is the thing that most people are going to notice when they sit in front of a television and they're like, why does this look so much better than my television? HDR is the reason. A lot of extra pixels, yeah, that is going to look better, but HDR is going to make, you know, scenes that are black and, you know, dark and light at the same time. Like if you're going to cave with a shaft of light shooting down, that is going to look so much more realistic than it does on current televisions. Just because that light is going to look so natural against that black. And then all the colors in between again. That is so much more eye-catching than 4K. And HDR is very complicated. The standard's only been kind of settled over the last several months, I think, in this standard called HDR10, which is basically just an agreement among a bunch of television vendors. It's open source of what color gamut everyone's going for, basically what spectrum of colors they want to use and support in their televisions and their devices, like the PlayStation 4 Pro. And the PlayStation 4 Pro is an HDR10 device. If you go out and try to find a TV that says HDR10, you're going to have a hard time unless you find the Ultra HD Premium label on a TV, which is the overarching whatever standard for televisions that say, oh, this is 4K and HDR10 and all these other things. Getting a decent Ultra HD Premium television, you're going to probably be spending about $1,500 at this point. It'll probably come down by the end of the year. But just having 4K is not really enough. And if you only have 4K and you don't have HDR, this is not worth the money. You know, especially if you already have a PS4. Just stick with your old PS4. Use that for a while and save the money, and then get the right TV before getting this. I do think that's an issue. And then the fact that HDR is the bigger deal, and you don't need a PlayStation 4 Pro for HDR. I think it's one of the bigger hangups I have with why this system doesn't make a lot of sense. It feels like a marketing gimmick because 4K is such a marketing gimmick. Now, I said this thing's doing 4K and it works. But if you were listening, I was also saying that Sony is taking shortcuts to get to 4K because it doesn't really matter to get to 4K. You can cheat, you can get by using magical algorithms that do a lot of the work for you instead of natively rendering in 4K, because 4K is just not that important to reach at this point with televisions, probably at any point, as long as we are sitting 10 feet away from the screen. As long as that's the way most people have their living room set up, which is how most people have their living room set up, it's just not going to matter as much. HDR, however, like I said, that's the eye-catching improvement. That is the real deal. That's the buzzword to get excited about. And yet, you don't need the Pro to do that. Sony, in the last couple months, has updated the original PlayStation 4 Pro to output HDR. It is an option now in every PlayStation 4, and you should be able to get that on a TV that is Ultra HD, Ultra HD Premium. So if you already have a PS4 and you already have Ultra HD Premium, a television that is that label or whatever, just plug it in, turn on HDR, and get like the best effect right now with the PlayStation 4 Pro in a device you already own. So it feels like then Sony's falling back on just 4K, and that doesn't. I don't know if the PS4 alone, or I don't know if 4K alone is worth it for the PS4 Pro. Again, if you don't already own the system, yeah, get this one because you get everything and you don't have to worry about it anymore. But it just seems like such a hard thing to kind of wrap my mind around. Like, you already have this thing, why go out and get the Pro? Yeah, some games are gonna have better frame rates, I guess, and that's great, that's awesome. But we don't have enough games yet to sort of decipher whether this is such a huge difference that it's worth the money. We're too early on, and that's why I think the best decision now is to take a wait and see approach. Finally, sorry, I got my loud keyboard. Finally, this doesn't have an Ultra HD Blu-ray player. What it does have is Netflix, and I think Sony PlayStation Store. Any videos from there, or well, not any videos, some videos from there will support HDR10 and 4K. But right now, the best way to get HDR 4K content is an Ultra HD Blu-ray player. And the PlayStation 4 Pro doesn't have that, for God knows why. I mean, I'm sure it saved them some money, but, you know, there's a competing device on the market that does have it. And for people that, you know, have a 4K TV that are actually going to, like, pay attention to things like HDR10 and Ultra HD Premium and all these other standards, they're probably the same people who care about having, you know, the best quality media they can have. And in that case, that's still the Blu-ray discs, you know, the UHD Blu-rays. And then to have that medium kind of burgeoning at the same time that the PS4 Pro comes out, it seems like a no-brainer. You should include that. And the fact that they didn't just seems like, well, clearly physical media is not the future, and it's not. But Netflix is not the present in terms of getting the best quality from, you know, your 4K Ultra HD, HDR television set. That feed is going to be compressed. It's not going to look as good as an Ultra HD Blu-ray by any means. The HDR might come through a little bit better. I haven't really seen a lot about that, but the 4K, that compression is probably going to look a little rough, just in a side-by-side comparison. Most people won't care. Most people will get by just fine. Hell, most people probably watch like 720p video or whatever, and don't care. So whatever. I don't think it's actually that big of a deal that it doesn't have an Ultra HD Blu-ray player, but it's one of those things that, again, it's worth pointing out that you should keep that in mind when you go to pay for this. Any other thoughts on it? I don't think so. I would just say, as part of my conclusion about whether or not I recommend this, it's tough. It's rough. It's $400. It's a PlayStation 4. So it's not like it's some insane price for some insane machine. It's reasonably priced. It is modest, and what it's giving you is a pretty decent improvement over the PlayStation 4 Pro or the PlayStation 4 2013 in many ways. At the same time, I don't know. If you don't have a TV already, if you don't have the right TV, if you don't have money to burn, or if you're not all in on VR, PlayStation VR, then I don't know if the system makes sense if you already own a PlayStation 4. At least not at this point. I would personally take a wait and see approach and force Sony to be the ones to make the case for this thing. Don't try to convince yourself. Put the onus on Sony and say, hey, Sony, tell me why I need to own this thing. Show me why. Give me the games that are going to be so much better that I feel I need to have this system. And I think at this point, they're just not ready to commit to that because, like I said, the games are still kind of getting those patches, so they're not ready yet. And even if they are ready, I think Sony also wants to go through this holiday keeping it clear that this is Pro. This is for those people that have to have the best. And once they kind of get through that first wave of early adopters who are going to get this thing, because that always happens, those gamers are always going to come through. This thing probably will, if not sell out, come close and kind of get through its initial allotment very quickly. Once Sony gets through those people, I think it'll have a whole marketing campaign ready to convince that next wave of consumers who are a little bit more hesitant to jump in on something like this. And I would wait and see how they phrase that pitch. Are they going to come out and say, here are the games that are so much better? Here's, why Horizon Zero Dawn makes so much more sense on the PlayStation 4 Pro. If they have a way of doing that looks good, sounds good, then at that point, I think, yes, buy in at that point. PlayStation 4 Pro, get rid of your old PlayStation 4, give it to your brother, give Sony, another customer to sell to. Give it to your grandma. I don't know. But, until then, I would just wait. Sony hasn't done that yet. They haven't won you over. They haven't won me over, so I would just wait. But yeah, if you don't own one, though, get this one. My eyes are so red. I'm sorry. I'm so tired. It's been a long weekend. I've been doing a million reviews. I feel like I should get real honest with y'all. Oh, it's just been nonstop. I don't know. I think I'm going to wrap this up because I'm just rambling at this point. I'm looking at this system. I'm trying to make sense of it, and it doesn't make a whole lot. And that doesn't make it a bad system at the same time. It's good. It's fine. It's a PlayStation 4, and I like the PlayStation 4 a lot. It plays video games just fine. It sometimes plays video games way better than the PlayStation 4 did. But, especially VR. But, I don't know. It's not, I don't know if it's worth, going through the whole rigmarole of spending $400 just to get this when you already have a PS4. So yeah, I think those are my final thoughts. I'm going to shut down the video now. We'll have plenty of coverage on the PS4 Pro as it's coming out. And as we get to a point where I'm looking at more games, especially if I have a way to get 4K footage, who knows? Probably not. That seems like it might be out of my reach for now. But in the coming days, we'll have more to look at. And, when we do, check out GamesBeat.com to see that. Until then, I am Jeffrey Grubb, and I will see you in the next video. I'm going to go to sleep. Fuck working weekends. Bye, guys.